chess geniuses. Let's talk about one of my very favorite tactics. Well, it is my absolute favorite tactic. It's the best one known to man, the discovered check. It is so powerful, it has its own street name. You know these people that are so cool, they go by their own nickname? Kind of like this guy I know named Dodge Cash Money. There's this coach I know named Coach Asterisk. There's a whole bunch of people with street names. Well, this tactic has a street name called the D-bomb. The discovered check is known as the D-bomb. How do you drop a D-bomb? And frankly, kids, it's time this week to teach you how to build a D-bomb in your basement. Here we go. And the way we go about doing this, to build a discovered check, and of course here is a discovered check to kind of get our feet wet, eyeball it. What do you think? Best move for white. I'll let you think about it for a minute. Alright, you got it. The best move is for the queen to slap itself right to this spot right here. That is G5. And when the queen goes to G5, it checks. But notice, it doesn't just check the piece behind it, attack something new, in this case, the queen. Yes, the queen could come over and interpose, yet that doesn't do any good because the queen just captures this queen and it's still checked. In fact, it's a disaster in that situation because there's going to be all kinds of trouble brewing, no question about it. And so this is a discovered check. Let's just run it by you from the beginning. A discovered check is the tactic in which you take a piece, you just take a regular piece, and you move it somewhere. But it turns out there was a piece behind it the whole time. Let's say I have a rook right here and a bishop. I move my bishop over to here. And once I do that, the bishop attacks something new because it just moved. Well, the rook also attacks something it hadn't been attacking before because something just got uncovered, like this. When the queen goes to right here, look, the rook does the attacking. That's the discovery. A discovery is when you make one move, it does some attacking, and the piece behind also attacks. This isn't just something you run into or you notice or you happen to stumble upon. These are the things you actually generate. You build the discovered check in the basement. I'm in my basement right now. I'm building you one. And believe me, they are devastating when they detonate because there is no surviving this situation. There really isn't. Because you go there and check. These poor people are in so much trouble. They've got to interpose, and then you check anyway, and then they come right there, and then you just bring a world of Hertenstein. You come with the knight. You'll mate very soon. And this is a discovery. Let's look at some details of it, shall we? Now, how do you actually build a discovered check? Well, you can build it by following the standard rules in chess. Let's say you have this opening. Let's say somebody does a standard E4 opening. That would be your second move to develop the bishop, and third move, typically to develop the knight if you're not going to open with a scholar's mate. Opening with a scholar's mate would work too. Any opening will work to build one, but look, we're following the golden rule. We're pulling new pieces out. The next thing is to pull that bishop up. Next thing is to castle, so the new piece comes out. The queen gets off the back rank, so to make room for the rooks, you pull one rook over, and then you pull the other rook over. You built your discovered check already. That's it. Because notice, once you push that pawn up and they take it, you can then move your bishop over here to capture that pawn. But the piece behind the bishop will be attacking also, and it might even check the king. And so in this situation, you actually have multiple different discoveries. Because when the queen moves out of the way to attack something new, the rook also attacks. And so the way you build a discovery is to hide it under a bushel. Kids, repeat after me. Hide it under a bushel. That's great. That means you put a bishop there, you drop a rook or something underneath it, then you move the bishop to attack, and the rook also attacks, and they can't stop both attacks. A discovered check is when you make one move that generates two different independent attacks that don't have anything to do with the other one. A fork is different. A fork is when you make one move and that one piece attacks two things. A discovered check is when you make one move and two different pieces attack two different things. And believe me, a fork can be stopped some of the time. A discovery almost never can be stopped. Your only chance to defend against it would be to take one of the pieces that's under attack and stop the other attack with it. And sometimes you can do that. I do it a lot. So, how do you actually build a discovered check? And the answer is, in this situation, you could use the fianchetto. It works just as well. We know fianchetto is when you drop the bishop there and come over. We know you move up, and that's a double fianchetto situation with the knight up and then the other knight up. But notice, you've hidden your bishop under a bushel. This one also is set for the super discovery. You castle, move the pawn up so the queen can move. The queen gets up, rook comes over, other rook comes over. Look at all the different situations here, kids. Because look, There's a bushel built. That knight has formed a bushel both of the queen and of this bishop, so you could do a double discovery here. This knight is also forming a bushel over which it's covering that bishop. The queen, when it moves, is going to result in a discovery of the rook. It's when you put one of your pieces right behind another one, you make one move and they both attack. It's such a cool tactic. And in this situation, fast forward a couple of moves, and you get the situation we had at the beginning of this lesson, where the queen comes up and checks, and unfortunately, the rook attacks this queen. All the king can do is move over, and then the rook just takes. Sure, the pawn takes the rook back, but a rook is worth 5, and a queen is worth 9. And we all get that that's a humongous advantage. So keep that in mind. This is the discovered check. It's today's lesson, and I want you applying it. Here's what I'm trying to say, kids. Every game you ever play, I want you to stop and say to yourself, okay, how can I hide one of my pieces under a bushel so that then when I move the piece behind the moving piece attacks and the moving piece attacks so they can't stop both? And that's the question. And I will show you some examples of a discovered check in the form of today's puzzlers. Enjoy today's lesson.